I've been doing this exact leg session for the past 5 years, probably totaling around 250 sessions. And trust me, my legs used to be absolutely tiny. They're probably not fantastic right now, but they've come a long, long way. So I want to share this session with you. And just so you know that this kind of programming actually works, I'm going to chuck up a photo of Harry as well, one of my clients, who's running pretty similar sessions to this. And you can see he's got some pretty wham quads. So you know that this session works. Let's get straight into it. If you give this session a go and you run it for a long time, like I have, get stronger at each of these movements, I can pretty much guarantee you'll end up with some big legs. And there's nothing worse than not having big legs and having a decent upper body, because you just like one of those bros. So don't be one of those bros. So we're going to start things off, as always, with an adductor. Now, you don't have to do this at the start of the session. However, it definitely helps me feel like I've got some blood in my hips, helps me increase my available range of motion a little bit when I get onto kind of the compounds later on in the session with the kind of squat movement patterns. So start off with an adductor. I do 2 to 3 sets here, depending on how much food I'm eating right now. If I've got more food, I will do a few more sets because I can obviously recover from more. You'll notice on the 2 sets that I do, the first set, I put a pause in the contracted position. So I'll go in all the way until my legs are touching, and I'm going to pause there for 1 to 2 seconds. On the second set, I don't do that. And the reason is, once I've done that first set, I'm already pretty cooked. The adductors have been worked, and I find it really difficult, especially on a machine like this, to get fully short, fully contracted. So putting a pause in the second set just makes it worse. So I'll make sure that I have a bit more of a focus on that lengthened position and actually put a pause in the stretch rather than that short. So 2 to 3 sets there. Most gyms will have an adductor like this, so you can definitely give this one a go. Then we move on to the leg extension. Exact same things here as the adductor. On the first set, I'll put a pause in the short. It's the only movement here that you can actually get load through your quad in the fully contracted position. There's no other movement that you can do it on. So I make sure that I kind of make the most of that in that first set of the leg extension. You'll know, well, you might not know this, but in your quad, you've kind of got 4 heads of your quads. There's the ones that you can see, the vastus medialis, lateralis, and intermedius. And in fact, that kind of sits a little bit below. And then you've got the rectus femoris all the way up at the top. The medialis, which is the one that kind of sits on the inside, that mostly gets worked when it's in its fully contracted position, sort of the last 15 degrees or so of the leg extension. So again, it's just another reason to put a pause in the top of the leg extension. Now, it's the same thing with the adductor. Once I've done it once, I can't do it again. There's absolutely no point because it's just so hard in that contracted position. So actually for the second set, I'll put more of an emphasis of putting a pause in the stretch as opposed to the short. Just 1 or 2 seconds to really make the most out of that. Again, it's usually 2 sets here. Sometimes I'll go up to 3 if I'm eating a lot of food, but most of the time it is just the 2 sets. You'll also see on the leg extension, I've got a bit of a weird setup going here with daisy chains going underneath me and then handles attached to them. That is purely so I can brace into the machine. When you get strong enough at this, the leg extension will literally lift you up out of the machine. So I've got a little setup here so that the handles are a little bit lower to kind of support my overly large and long arms. Maybe not large. We're trying to get there anyway, so that I can actually brace into the machine and pull myself down into it. If you've not got this, just grab onto the handles, get some straps on and pull yourself into that seat. Then we're on to the final isolation movement of this session, which is a lying hamstring curl. Now, I'm not going to lie, if you do have access to a decent seated hamstring curl, go for that. The lying hamstring curl is okay. It's better than nothing, but you're going to get a little bit more out of a seated hamstring curl because your hamstring is going to be in a more stretched position. The hamstring curl that we've got here, I don't fit on, first of all, and it's kind of squeaky. So there's pretty much no point of me doing that because it just definitely is worse than the lying one. Now, this is the only hamstring work that I actually do in this session. So, in fact, it's some of the only hamstring work I do throughout the whole week, other than doing a hip hinge on another day in the form of a RDL. So I actually do 3 to 4 sets here. So I'm pushing the volume up quite a lot on this exercise because, like I say, it's the only one in this session. And you might be asking at this point, we've done the adductor, we've done the leg extension, we've done the hamstring curl, where's all the like actual big leg movements? Well, they're coming soon. And the reason that I do that is it just helps me get mentally prepared, so that I'm not just going in like really almost too fresh, too mentally fresh into the compounds. If I put them right at the start, I'm just kind of not in it. But the main reason really is to get some blood flow through the knees and through the hips. If I don't, I'll be doing a squat, my knees will be clicking, kind of get a bit of knee pain as well. So if you are suffering with anything like that, just give it a go doing your isolations first and then putting the compounds towards the back end of the session. And you can then actually have a look at how good your performance is across those sets. Do you notice a massive drop off when you do your isolations first, then going into your compounds? If so, then maybe put your compounds first. But personally, I really don't get much drop off. So it's worthwhile for me to get that extra warm up through the isolations and then going on to the compounds. So isolations ticked off, then we go into 2 compounds. Both of these compounds that I've got are squat movement patterns. So I've got a Smith machine squat to start off with and then go into a leg press. If you're short on time, or if you just don't want to do this, like just do one of them. You don't need them both. For me personally, I prefer doing 1 set of each than 2 of the leg press right now. And reason being is, I kind of want to be good at squatting. I've put it off quite a lot, so I do want to get good at it. And B, that second set that I tend to do on the leg press seems to be quite significantly worse compared to if I do 1 of each, okay? But if you're short on time or you don't want to do this, like just do 1 of them. If you're going to choose one to grow your legs, probably the leg press is a little bit better just because you got extra stability. But it's kind of up to you. It doesn't make too much of a difference. So, like I say, 1 set of the Smith machine squat to start off with. I'm really trying to focus on staying pretty upright here and getting plenty of knee over toe. A lot of people will put this off. They'll say, "Oh, don't drive your knees over toes because it's going to hurt your knees." Well, if you want big quads, then you got to drive your knee over toe. The only way you can get big quads is by getting a lot of knee flexion. So make sure you're getting deep. Make sure you're driving your knee over toe, and that's going to stimulate your quads nicely. Then we go on to the leg press. Like I said, same sort of cue in here. My feet are nice and low. I'm trying to get my knees over toe so that I can try and get plenty of quad out of this. Naturally for me, I'm sure a lot of blokes might feel this, and also women, but they're probably a bit more inclined to want this. Doing a squat movement pattern, I just feel my glutes if I don't really try to actually put tension on my quads. So feet nice and low, driving those knees over toes. And something that helps me here is also thinking about, geez, my voice went. Something I think about here is thinking about pulling my knees towards my armpits. Getting that slightly wider knee path just helps me get a little bit more depth. So 1 set here, and then we finish off the session with a bit of calves. I didn't film this, but when you are doing calves, just make sure you put a bit of a pause in that stretch position, because your Achilles is a bit of a beast. So you need to allow it the kind of tension to dissipate so that you can actually put the load through your calves rather than it just going through your Achilles and you bouncing up and down out of the hole. So 3 sets here of calves because, again, it's the only movement that I'm actually hitting calves directly. And that is a session pretty much done and dusted. So little recap: adductor, leg extension, hamstring curl, squat movement pattern for me, it's a Smith squat and a leg press, and then we go on to calves with either a toe press or a seated calf raise. I kind of rotate between the two so that I'm kind of hitting the gastrocnemius, the big fat one on the back of your calf, and the soleus, which is the one that kind of sits underneath. So that's the session pretty much done and dusted. It's a very good one. Like I say, I've been running it for ages. If you get strong at this, you will indeed get some big legs. So yeah, hopefully this video has helped. If you do want a full leg guide, I'm going to put my Instagram below. Just DM me, I don't know, legs, and I'll send it across to you with this session and a few extra little bits of guidance. So hopefully you enjoyed this tube. Be sure to subscribe. Here's another fantastic video that YouTube's going to recommend to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.